Yet another mom excoriates a school board for empowering child abuse in the public school classrooms. This, my friends, is called the anger stage of grief. Time to move on now to the stage of acceptance. That's the stage where parents realize that public schools hate them and plan to indoctrinate their children. With acceptance comes the realization that the only option is taking your kids out of the public schools once and for all. I'm Dr. Duke. I'm in the depressed stage. She's Katie. She's in the denial stage. And this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell. Everybody's got to sleep, right? And our friends at MyPillow, they know how to make you sleep well. Father's Day is coming up. Dad needs a new dog bed. When he fights with mom and she throws him out and he's got to go downstairs, what better place for dad to sleep than in one of these beautiful Mike Lindell MyPillow dog beds? I tell you what, it's amazing. MyPillow has sold millions of pillows, sheets, towels, and even dog beds for delinquent fathers. Now, you can save up to 66% when you use the promo code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Use it and save up to 66% at mypillow.com and help us out as well. Mike Lindell is a patriot. We know that. We want to support him. He supports patriotic programming like this. Again, use the code Dr. Duke, DRDUKE, to save up to 66% at MyPillow and to help out a plucky little show on education. Okay, we start in New York, where yet again a mother is going viral for unleashing hell hath no fury like a mom scorned on an area school board over the indoctrination and left-wing propaganda that her kids are being subjected to. And I love this. We're going to keep showing you this because, look, we've got an American mom and dad culture that's starting to wake up, right? Yes. Wake up. This is good. This is good. So we're going to keep showing you this. We're going to keep egging this on. But at some point, as I said in my teaser at the opening, the stages of grief for a dead public school system. Public education in this country is dead. It's not interested in educating your kids. It's not interested in making them math literate. It's not interested in making them good readers. What you consider to be the public school, mom and dad, a place where your kid goes to learn ABCs and 1, 2, 2, 3s, that's dead. Life support is over, flatlined. The body, the soul is not coming back into that system. Yell at them, they deserve to hear it, but then realize that it's a dead school system. You send your kids to those schools, they're going to get indoctrinated. You send those kids to public schools, they will be turned into your enemy. Your values will be the enemy values that they will be learning here. It is staggering when I say this, but the public schools are dead for all intents and purposes. Get past depression, get past denial, get past anger, and now do the right thing. Channel that mom anger into marching your kids right out of those public schools and into the classrooms of people who will look after your kids and teach them, not overwhelm and brainwash them.
And that's exactly what one mother, as you said, in Carmel, New York, is claiming. It's Tatiana Ibrahim. So she went viral for calling the school board thieves, liars, and she says that they committed treason against our children. And her whole premise for going up to the school board and speaking to the board directly is that the school had sent out a survey, or the school board had done a survey wanting to know why was it that parents weren't voting in favor of a new school budget. Because, you know, they only know that you send this out, wink, wink, right, as a survey, just to be like, yeah, by the way, we're just going to go ahead and
Don't you love, by the way, before we see the clip, the entitlement of these school boards? Wait, we're destroying your children and undoing liberty and freedom and destroying the Constitution. And why aren't you giving us more money?
Yeah. So instead of just kindly writing that on the survey, just saying, you know, I'd rather spend money elsewhere, she actually, for the most part, initially, politely tried to tell them exactly why she did not support the new budget.
I think the Board of Education and those sitting on the panels are thieves. I think they're liars and have committed treason against our children. My message to this district and the members of the Board of Ed: stop indoctrinating our children. Stop teaching our children to hate the police. Stop teaching our children that if they don't agree with the LGBT community, that they're homophobic. You have no idea each child's life. You don't know what their family lifestyle consists of. You don't know the makeup of their life. You're emotionally abusing our children and mentally abusing them. You're demoralizing them by teaching them communist values. This is still America, ma'am.
So what's really interesting about this whole clip, if you watch the extended clip, several times she is interrupted by the school board members being like, if you'd like to take this up with us at another time. And she's like, who are you getting paid? Who's paying for you to be here right now? And of course the board member's like, it's volunteer to try and like boost themselves up. But she's like, my tax dollars pay for this. And so it's a very much so back and forth with the mom and the school board until she tries to maintain a level of decency the entire time, even though they're trying to kick her off. And she did promise that she'll be there.
Well, she's a Christian, and her children are being raised Muslim, which is really interesting. We had, if you joined us last week, you saw an African American dad and his little baby girl, another African American woman. We're seeing people of all different races, which is really remarkable about this phenomenon. This is the kind of desperation that these parents have to preserve this country the way it was founded. You're seeing now people of all different races and backgrounds, and we're going to see it in the second spot coming up here today too, where we have an Asian woman who fled to the Chinese communists, telling us about how critical race theories is the old communist way of doing things.
And before we get to that, we're going to go to upstate New York, where we have a school board member from Penfield named William Yeager. Well, William Yeager, he's such an upstanding board member that he decided to call a parent an a-hole following a public comment section, from the parents, all because they pushed back against the mask policy, the COVID mask policy, and of course, the diversity, equity, and inclusion curriculum that they're trying to put in too. So let's just take a look at the video. I'll set it up. It's parent Rich Tyson, and he has a daughter in the district, and you're going to see a comment made. You'll hear it. And then Rich Tyson decides to go on up to that stage.
Let me just say, moms are screaming their heads off. Dads are ready to throw down.
Well, he claims that it wasn't throw down, but yes.
Throw down, baby.
Be respectful. You're an elected representative to represent us. This isn't about you, Mark. You're not going to stand up here and do anything to me. Hey, stop! Okay. Come on. Come on. All right, we're going to move into recess. This whole time. Come on. You got something to say? What did you call me? I didn't call you a what? I said you are elected to represent us. I didn't call you. I'm doing you. You don't tell me what to do over there. I will. Welcome to our building. You are our dad. Let's go outside, bud.
So Mr. Tyson clearly wanted to know, what was it again that you called me? And he decided to say it. So this is, if we live in normal times, back in the day, that's what you would do when you feel threatened. Especially males tend to do it more than females.
The superintendent literally called Mr. Tyson and
the board member.
The board member actually literally called Mr. Tyson an a-hole.
Yes. So he had the right to go up and come again and question it.
I just went with a name like Tyson. What did you call me?
No, don't even try to be.
I got my pigeons in the car. What did you call me? It's a perfect name, Tyson.
Yes.
To go up there and blacken the eye of some cheap-talking superintendent, some board member.
Right. So the school district, of course, released a statement, and they acknowledged that Mr. Yeager had completely inappropriate behavior, but they noted that his term ends at the end of June, and that's before they meet again, so whoops.
Right, so nothing can happen to him. But again, a month and a half ago, on the Dr. Duke Show, we did a call to arms for fathers. This father is going to arms, right? I mean, look, you can say this is barbaric. You can say they're both wrong like the school board does. But look, if there was ever a thing that a dad was meant to fight for, and I don't just mean fight by arguing and fight by standing up and talking. If there's one thing a dad should be willing to fight for, it is the moral health of their children, which is being compromised and sold out by these school boards and these critical race theory pedagogies. If there's one thing, Dad, that you need to protect your kids from, it's this. So good on you, Mr. Tyson.
As you teased earlier, Dr. Duke, we have another story about a mom standing up in front of the school board, and this time she survived living in communist China. So you can't just culturally appropriate on this one. We have a parent named Ji Van Fleet, and she decided that she's going to go up, tell the school board exactly what it was with her experience living in Mao's China and how that ties into what we have going on in America.
Now, you look at the last two speakers in the first segment. You've got Mrs. Ibrahim, who is no nonsense. She's got that Lebanese blood flowing through her veins, right? She's got that attitude. And then you've got the dad who literally is forced to rush the stage. Now, I want you to listen to this Asian woman who, like you said, Katie, she was old enough to remember what the Red Guards did in China, old enough to remember that what you call critical race theory, they understood it as a Soviet and a communist tactic.
And what's interesting, of course, is per usual, this is happening in Loudoun County,
Again.
Virginia.
Yep.
Again. So let's listen to her.
I've been very alarmed about what's going on in our school. You are now training our children to be social justice warriors and to loathe our country and our history. Growing up in Mao's China, all this seemed very familiar. The communist regime used the same critical theory to divide people. The only difference is they use class instead of race. During the Cultural Revolution, I witnessed students and teachers turn against each other. We changed school names to be politically correct. We were taught to denounce our heritage. The Red Guards destroy anything that is not communist, old statues, books, and anything else. We are also encouraged to report on each other, just like the Student Equity Ambassador Program and the bias reporting system. This is indeed the American version of the Chinese Cultural Revolution. The critical race theory has its roots in cultural Marxism. It should have no place in our schools.
Now, anyone who knows any history whatsoever, may have heard about what happened in the 60s and 70s in China, and anywhere from 500,000 to 20 million, we don't even know how many people were killed under Mao's regime. If someone who lived during that time there is coming over here and comparing it to what is happening in our schools, you know it's not a good thing.
And what I love about her is, unlike the other ones, she's done and she walks away. Right? She's not going to wait for them to buzz her off, not going to wait for them she just says what she says and walks away because she lived through it. And we don't know how many were killed in the 60s and 70s, but we know that over the course of his brutal career, Chairman Mao is actually the greatest killer in human history. He's the most murderous dictator we have ever encountered. And his entire modus operandi was the Chinese version of what we call critical race theory. Remember what that woman said, what Xi said. She said very clearly, we did it on the basis of class. You're doing it on the basis of race, but it is the same thing. We renamed our schools politically correct names. We were taught to hate our history. We were taught that to teach our children to narc on our parents, right? To sell our parents out for not being the right kind of people. Everything you're doing here is what we were doing in Mao's China.
And in an interview, she actually said how when she came to America, she says, I felt like it's such a free country, meaning I have free access to all sorts of information, books on both sides of the issues. So she's not trying to say we don't want to educate, like we can't have any race theory or any talk of race. She's saying so much information. How about we actually give students access to that so they can think for themselves about it.
And that is the big lie of critical race theory. When you challenge it, they immediately say, oh, you don't want our kids to learn about race. We have obsessed about race for 30, 40, 50 years. The idea that our kids, up until critical race theory, weren't getting race, I did 10 years ago, with my quizzes, right? I for 25 years as a university professor, I have thousands and thousands of quizzes where I gave kids American history questions and asked them basic knowledge. I've got the results of those. I've done done shows on them. Our kids were getting radically leftist politics way back in the late 1980s, early 1990s. The idea that if without critical race theory, our kids won't learn about our checkered past, they won't learn about slavery, it's a bald-faced lie. For 3 generations before critical race, our classrooms were consumed by left-wing, anti-American racial phobia in the classroom.
At this point, I'm just going to start watching all of the Loudoun County School Board meetings because that's where all the action happens. We have another.
How soon before they cancel these meetings?
Yeah, they're not going to put them
Right.
on, as like live streaming anymore.
But we've got another one.
We have another one, and this one's has a little twist to it because we have a Loudoun County mom who is a teacher in the county next door, Fairfax County, which we've also done shows about teaching critical race theory.
And this one is clever. I mean, notice the diversity here. What we're seeing here is unprecedented. Ordinarily, for the past 2 and 3 years, it's the occasional soccer mom, right? White, high-voiced, anxious and nervous. Now you got dads. Now you got ethnic diversity going on here. And this teacher, she's clever. She pretty much talks to everybody but the school board because she knows what a waste of space these governing bodies, these school boards are when you try to reason with them.
Fairfax County public school teacher, and I'm going to give a message of encouragement to parents and teachers and students who are too afraid to come and speak forward. Parents, the longer that you wait and you don't hold your child's schools accountable gives these guys more time to dictate what's best for your child's physical, mental, and emotional health. Don't be afraid to speak out for your kids because they are voiceless and they rely on you. You should be afraid of them rooting for socialism by the time they get to middle school. Teachers, it may seem that our careers have come to a dead end, but I'm here to remind you, we don't work for the school board. We work to mold the next generation of well-rounded American patriots. So don't give up because it is up to us. Students, you are on the front lines of these indoctrination camps. Challenge the staff when you're presented with a ludicrous statement, and do not allow anybody to tell you that you cannot accomplish anything because of your skin color or to hate yourself because of your skin color. Students, it is up to you to be the next generation of victims or victors. And finally, to the board, this isn't over, and your policies are just as
Yep, of course they cut her off, because why wouldn't they cut her off? Because she's speaking truth to power? Truth to power?
Truth to ignorance,
There
I like
it
to
is.
call it.
Well,
ignorance that is wielding power.
Well, yes, and her name is Lilith Venezian, and again, her kids attend Loudoun, but she's a teacher in Fairfax, but like it matters because it's happening everywhere. She also went on Fox News to talk about, saying why she actually decided to stand up for the students.
These children are the future of this country, and if you love this country, you will do anything and everything to stand up for the vulnerable population, and that is our children. They cannot stand up for themselves. They cannot speak for themselves. They fear retaliation. It's up to us adults, parents, and teachers alike to come together and speak up for them for the sake of this country.
Bingo. We've got to speak for them. Do you really think your children have what it takes to fight this off? I remember doing this with Common Core, and it was so maddening. I would have parents tell me, Christian parents would say, well, we do send our kids to the public schools, Dr. Besta, because we want them to be salt and light. We want them to be a model for how other kids, we want to show them. Are you kidding? You wouldn't send your 11-year-old into the Borneo jungle to show the pygmies with their blow darts, right, how to be Christian. You wouldn't do it. I realize I jumped from one geographically wrong with my pygmies, but nevertheless, you wouldn't send them into the cannibalistic rainforest, right, to teach the man-eaters of the Amazon how to become Christians. As adults, you want to go, but you don't send 11-year-olds. And quite frankly, American public schools are as dangerous to the spiritual development of your kids across this country as being in the Borneo or the Amazon rainforest is. This is a place where spirituality is under assault, under attack. Christian worldview is under extreme attack. Your kids are not qualified, however well-meaning, to fight this off. It's time now for some real education. Do you remember what real education was before all this happened? Look, how many times at the Dr. Duke Show in the last 2.5 years, how often do you hear school teachers, school administrators, all these educrats, all these superintendents, when do they ever, just one time, have we been able to do a show where the administration of a school says, look, we're concerned that your kids can't read. Here's how we're going to fix it. We're really mad that your kids can't do math. Here's the math we're going to teach your kids. No. It's all of this radical, inane socialist policy. So here is what real education looks like. This is Education Week on Humanist Education Week on the Dr. Duke Show. By that I mean we're looking at some of the great humanist educators of the last, I'm sticking to the late medieval period and the early Renaissance period. Today we're starting with one of the first great Western humanists, Francesco Petrarca, who's known primarily as a poet, one of the great first poets to kick off the Renaissance in Italy, immediately following Dante. Dante was dead by 1321. Petrarch was born in 1304. He was a humanist, he was a scholar, he was a pedagogue, he was a translator, he was a remarkable, literally a Renaissance man, a man capable of doing all sorts of wonderful things. And he wrote, it seems, a lot about education as well, because this first generation of Italian Renaissance scholars understood the power of education and what it could do, how education, serious classical education, could bring people closer to God than almost anything else you could teach kids. And so take a look at some of our quotes from Francesco Petrarca. Quote, 5 enemies of peace inhabit with us: avarice, ambition, envy, anger, and pride. If these were to be banished, we should infallibly enjoy perpetual peace. We hold the key to peace in our own practice of virtue. How about this quote? The aged love what is practical, while impetuous youth longs only for what is dazzling. Isn't that the culture we live in? The older we get, I can certainly say it's true of all of us here at the Dr. Duke Show, the older we get, the more practicality we want with these matters. But it's the children who want the dazzling. That's why it's so easily able to dazzle young minds with rapper bling and celebutard glitter, right? Education transforms kids from little squirrels who bright, shiny object to actual thinkers. Well, at least they used to before critical race theory. How about this quote from Francesco Petrarca? It is better to be raised to a throne than to be born to one. Fortune bestows the one, merit obtains the other. Meritocracy. When the humanist movement in Western culture got born in the Renaissance, they were emphasizing merit over dumb luck. And what do the socialists of today want? They want to flip it back to that, right? Get rid of merit and let everybody have the same fate. How about this quote? Man has no greater enemy than himself. Man is constantly getting in his own way. All of these utopian answers to problems that aren't really problems. That's what gets people in trouble. Man has no greater enemy than himself. And finally, quote, a shortcut to riches is to subtract from our desires. Maybe the key is not to worry about how much we want, but to actually subtract what it is we think we want. To expect less, ask for less, live with less, need less, and you don't have to worry about having too much.
Just become a minimalist. Anyway, just a quick reminder that the best way to access our content is to download our Freedom Project Media app. Simply search Freedom Project in your app store, download, and then make sure you allow for notifications. And if you enjoy our content, please consider joining the Patriot Club. Your one-time $99 tax-deductible donation allows us to keep bringing you all these crazy stories every single day. Simply visit patriotclub.us to get signed up. That's patriotclub.us. And of course, as a little thank you, we will ship you our signature tumbler. And before we go, let's show some love to our Patriot Club members. Today, we're going to give a shout out to William from Arnold, Missouri. Thank you for supporting us.
Thank you so much, William from Arnold, Missouri. How about Arnold from William, Missouri? How about that? We need your support as well. Thanks for supporting us anyway. And that's our show for Freedom Project. I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friend.